Let's carry on with one theme that we've started in 2009 and beat up on the politicians. MPs in the UK are calling for an extension to the ban on short selling of financial stocks, so says the Financial Times today. Richard, since we've had the ban on financial stocks, they've continued to fall aggressively based on fundamentals and owners of that stock selling, rather than short sellers who could potentially actually act the other way as well, because we know how the mechanism works. The point being, politicians don't understand the markets, which is probably good. It means they don't meddle so much in the workings of equity markets. But what hope for 2009?
Yeah, well, I think it's actually a very valid point, and this is one of the big issues that I've got about the markets and what we're doing wrong. They don't understand it. They're getting lawyers to write the rules, and they're getting accountants to write the rules. When I first joined the stock market, we had proper exchanges which were run by the members, and the exchanges themselves were non-profit making organisations. They were there just to facilitate business.
But they're one of the few areas that have done really well in 2008. The exchanges themselves, listed, is going to be surely one of the winners in 2009.
Yeah, but that's one of the biggest mistakes of what that's gone wrong, because the members themselves, if you go to the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, they have a membership system there, and one member steps out of the way and he does something wrong, the rest of the membership will kick him out. Right. The same applies, and it doesn't matter whether he belongs to a big firm or whether he belongs to a little firm, he would get kicked out. That's what you used to have with stock exchanges. As soon as you start moving to the point, and it's like the business with the politicians get the short selling ban renewed, it's a function of the market. Short selling is a function of the market. We used to have jobbers who used to supply
supply liquidity at the lower levels. And to put it in context, though, let's face it, market makers are still allowed to hold short positions on financials across the board, whether you're derivative traders or equity traders as well.
Yeah, but the thing is,
you can provide that liquidity, Richard.
Yeah, you can provide that liquidity, but it's something that when you start changing and stopping what is the normal functioning part of the market, then you're actually changing a market. It's no longer a market.
Yeah, and
that's a big problem.
And Hans, I mean, there's been enough hype to the upside in enough of these market bubbles. Why can't people be able to do the same on the downside?
Well, I guess that when things are going into one direction to the upside, then everybody seems to be pleased, and the alarm bells are only ringing when things are turning sour. So that is a normal way of behavior. But I would certainly agree that there's a high degree of misunderstanding of the functioning of a market when you have this interference. I mean, yes, we need regulations, we need improved regulations, but to do this is the wrong thing to do.
And this is the problem, isn't it? Because they got scared about CDO squared and all kinds of acronyms, then they suddenly thought, right, all derivatives, they're bad. All derivatives are bad, so then we better not have any of them. Martin, you want to come in?
Yeah, here's the problem that I have with all this, although fundamentally I probably agree on the top end. If we're all football fans to some degree, and as a North American I find it curious that I can never have a conversation with a European about football and discuss changing the offside rule, because it's something that everybody grew up with and everybody understands, no matter how complicated and how much of a failure it is from game to game to game to game to game. We have to do a root and branch look back at the functioning of the marketplace and discover whether naked short selling is a good thing, because it clearly took down financial institutions. Bear Stearns is clearly an example of a bank.
To do with the fact they were overgeared on products.
They were overgeared, there's no question about it, but that did not set them out from any of their peers who were equally overgeared. Well, self-fulfilling prophecies became fact because naked short selling created the image of a bank that was teetering on the edge. And ultimately the capital, in terms of equity, dropped so much,
all right, so
people took out their capital.
Have short selling, but not naked short selling.
This is just it. What I'm saying is we just have to rediscover some of the sacred cows that we have thought to be true for a functioning marketplace, because it was clear to me that markets didn't function like they were supposed to through all of last year.
They didn't function in 2008. What about 2009? And have we got any predictions in terms of where the equities are going to go this year? Because as far as I can see, there are still a lot of people calling down the earnings, and actually at the same time think, yeah, we'll call down the earnings to a realistic level, but then the market can rally.
I think they're wrong. The way I look at it is, if you look at the post 9/11 and the levels we were at post 9/11, we are nowhere near those levels yet. And 9/11 was never even a fractured credit market. This is a fractured credit market, and the biggest threat in fractured credit markets is technology gets crushed, because it's a big cash burner on R&D, and so does pharma, so does biotech. All of these things become a real big problem. my view of it is equity markets have still got a long way to go on the downside yet. We haven't yet got to the real bottom end. And I know a lot of people are sitting there saying that they think there should be a big recovery this year. I can't see it. I really cannot see it.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, maybe people like some of these yields, the ones they can trust anyway. Hans, what do you think?
Well, you have to look at valuations first of the corporate bond markets. The corporate bond market is trading, or at least 4 weeks ago was trading at levels that are associated to depression. The equity markets were trading at recessionary levels, so there was a gap in between. And what I'm watching very closely is what is going to happen on the corporate bond market side. I guess that is going to be the key. And the corporate bond market spreads have started to come in. And it must be the policy target that we are going to improve the refunding conditions in these economies. If we are failing on that side, then the equity market is going to be dead. Simply because then the equity market has to come down to the valuation level of the corporate bond market. Basically, it has then to trade at depressionary levels. So the big question is, are we going to be successful in the corporate bond market, or are we not going to be successful? Now, what do we see? If you look at the asset-backed security markets, their spreads are still wide. If you look into other areas of the corporate bond market, and the closer you are getting at the front end of the curve, the more spreads have come down. On the back end of the curve, you still have spreads being quite wide. But then it is as well quite interesting to look at where are, in the United States, for example, AAA bond yields. The spread is wide, but AAA bond yields are trading at the lowest level for about 25 years. So that actually means that from a corporate AAA institutions, that the funding conditions have improved quite significantly. And I guess that we are forgetting this. That this is something which is really important, because we are talking about a liquidity crunch, we are talking about a credit crunch. And the forecast on the marketplace needs to take into consideration what is going to happen to the liquidity and to the credit crunch. If we are successful in bringing spreads down, in making that market segment more liquid, then we will be as well successful in overcoming this crisis. That, I guess, is a point to take.